Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. I'm actually recording this very late on Sunday night. I was at a show all day today. I got home, quick dinner, and just went through my first two fantasy drafts of the year back to back. In fact, they overlapped. I had two computers going to get both of them done at the same time. Um, so I can tell you up front, it won't be a long episode tonight, but definitely going to touch on a topic that I think needs talking about. Um, I talked about the Fishtown show last week, and that I did very well. I sold a ton of cards, came home super excited. Um, in anything I do, I'm always happy to be cash heavy, right? I'm always happy to be ready to buy something that comes along all the time. Um, but coming home from that show doing so well, I'm like, okay, I need to replenish some of my inventory, right? So I put my focus into this week into buying some inventory because I have a bunch of shows coming up in September. Reaching out to people, finding out what people have, sending messages, sending an email, contacting, people that I've gone to before, that I usually talk to, that I know either grade cards or, they don't get out to shows, but they do a lot in the hobby. Uh, Everyone's saying the same thing. Nobody's really getting any cards these days. Everybody finding it really hard to buy, finding it really hard to find any deals out there, and really finding it hard, or f- finding it hard, people with decent inventory with reasonable prices, which I think is probably the most important, right? If you're going to buy something, you need to buy it. I always say you got to buy it well, right? You got to buy it at a good price so you can move it at a good price. But some of the stuff is dried up. Some people, they don't have, or if they do have it, they're like, look, I'm going to hold on to this for now, or if I'm going to move it, I need to move it at this price. Um, So came the end of the week, and I really didn't have anything done hobby wise. Had made no deals. And then I'm going around the office. I'm like, okay, now I need to put a PSA order together, right? And I mean, I'm looking at the timing of it, and it really can't be football, right? Because by the time it gets there and it comes back, it's October. And then cards you could be sending out now would be like, you don't know where they could be. I mean, you could get lucky in card, just having a card out there now. But unless it's a higher end card, right? And you're sending it quickly, if you're doing the bulk orders, it's going to take a while for those to come back. So other things that I have here, some non-sport, I have all that non-sport that I started going through this week, and trying to make trying to figure out, make a decision what I'm going to do with that, right? It's so much of it is overwhelming. So basically, I'm just going to have to start going one set at a time and saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to sell these whole sets? Am I going to grade them? So I dabbled a little bit in that, but then I jumped back into, just thinking that, I don't want to be running out of inventory in the middle of September when I've got all these shows, right? So I knew I had something going on Saturday, but the way it planned that I had to leave, I knew there was a local show Saturday morning. So I said, let me get up early. Let me hit that show early and see if I can go down and, make some deals and pick up some cards. So I got down there early. I got down there before the doors even opened. I was actually walking around the show while people were still putting their cards out. Um, all ready to buy cards, and there was really nothing there, nothing to buy. I'm looking in people's cases, and there was just, for me, I mean, it's not a very big show, but in those cases there was really nothing to buy. In fact, my guy Bill and Billy Sports Cards, they were setting up there outside, and they just gotten back an order from PSA that they were putting the sleeves on, and they were just putting them in their cases. Although great cards, you know, when and somebody said today, it's like, I can't believe you guys do a lot of deals and we're friends, and we do, but I think we both respect each other's inventory, right? And it's interesting to say he just got this stuff back. I'm not going to come over and start trying to buy stuff at a discount from him, right? He hasn't even set it up at his show yet. Like, at least give him the opportunity to put his cards out there and get his full prices and things like that. I would certainly not, I did have my eye on a couple of those cards, and I said, you know what? Maybe next week or when I see you again, if you still have those cards, we'll talk, we'll make a deal. And he does the same thing with me. I get cards back. We share, what we get back. And he say, hey, you know what? If you don't move that, let me know. I'd be interested in that. And this is kind of the way we are with each other, because we're doing the same exact thing, right? And if I get cards from him or he gets cards from me, I mean, we're just putting them in our cases, right? We're doing the same things with the cards. So, anyways, I left that show empty-handed. Uh, and I talked on Thursday's episode about going to the American Dream Mall show, which was Saturday and Sunday this weekend. So, I reached back out to Bill later at Saturday. I said, hey, I'm definitely going to go down there. I didn't pick anything up. I'm definitely going to go down there. If you guys, if you guys want to take a ride down to that show, I'll pick you up. Uh, and at that time, he said a guy had come by his table and bought almost all his new slabs, his whole PSA order, just bought them completely out. So here's a guy that probably showed up at the show to buy football, right? Walked around, came back outside, and just bought everything he had outside. Um, so he was looking at this point too. He was looking to replenish some of his inventory, right? Because now he's sold out again, all the stuff he's got. So we made arrangements. We met up, picked him up, and we drove down there to the show. We got down there at 10:30. The show started at 11. Um, so again, we're there early and trying to be the first ones in. Um, and I would have to say probably between 10:30 and noontime, people were just coming in and setting up. It wasn't like a typical show, right? Where, that I go to anyways, or that I set up at, that everybody's there early. Everybody's gets all the doors are opening at 9. Everybody's got all their stuff out and then ready to go by like 8:30. They're walking around, they're looking through everybody else's stuff, type of thing. This was just completely different. Like, I don't know how many tables are there, but they were, there was probably, I'd say, 15 to 20 people that were set up early, ready to go. And beyond that, like, people just kept coming in with their cases and, putting their stuff out. So it was like do one lap. And then a second time you went around, there was a couple more dealers there, right? And just did this really all morning. I just kept relapping the place because every time I went around, there'd be somebody new or a few people new there. Talking to most people and looking at the inventory, people didn't have much inventory in their cases. There were a lot of half empty cases there. Now, a bunch of the dealers said, oh, yesterday this place was really busy, and people were saying, oh, it got bought out yesterday. I got bought out yesterday. And people are always saying, it's the repackers, right? And then you have people are always complaining. The repackers are cleaning out all the dealers before the show's open, right? And people are showing up at the shows and finding empty cases, and dealers, all they want to do is buy. They have 2 or 3 cards and a sign saying buying, and it's always yesterday or the day before. It was always, so busy there. But a lot of people are just saying a lot of these cards are just being all bought up before the show start. I can say yesterday or this morning that didn't happen. I don't know what happened the day before, but this morning it didn't happen. There were just empty, a lot of empty cases there. Um, and I know people are using the word repacker, pretty broadly right now. Just because somebody comes in, and I said this to somebody today, just because somebody comes in and buys a bunch of your cards doesn't mean he's a repacker. I mean, we're just saying everybody's a repacker when they're buying a bunch of the cards, right? Um, doesn't mean that. Those cards could be going anywhere. But either way, all that inventory, when it gets bought up, it's leaving the show. It's not sticking around. It's not like somebody's buying it and then going around and try to resell it back to somebody. It's being packed up and it's leaving the show. and it's also leaving a lot of people with no inventory or no way to replenish their inventory, right? Or just having to get more creative to find inventory to put in their cases. Because let's face it, a lot of cards are not showing up, to shows, not as much. People are coming to shows um, to buy cards. Um, I always had a few people that I could call, right? That would always have inventory that I could buy. Um, and I think most of us probably have that, those one or two people that we rely on. We know somebody who does a lot of grading or somebody that just has a ton of inventory and just as they're going through it, they're trying to sell it and just keep reaching out, or they reach out to you. Oh, I've got this, or I went through this, or I have these cards, or I've got all these things coming back from PSA. Are you interested? And a lot of those wells have dried up as well. I mean, I do still talk to people, but a lot of it are, you know, they're stale cards now. Um, and I don't know. I mean, for me, I know there's a home for every card, right? But you know, I've learned to spot stale cards, and I hate getting into now. And it's funny because I always find that when I ever make up a big deal, I always get a bunch of cards that I really want, but there's always one or two stale cards that have to come along. They have to come along for the ride, right? They become part of the deal, and I've almost gotten used to that by now, and with that I've learned to spot stale cards, immediately, because I was the guy, and I think we all go through this, like it's almost like a rite of passage as a dealer. You end up, you buy cards and you realize they're stale cards, and then you're just trying to get out of them, and you try to put them on a trade, and then they're in the discount box, and somebody makes you an offer, you're like, yes, please take it away, that card is cursed, like just take it and go. But I think we all go through that, and I think we learn a lot of valuable lessons, with cards like that, and we try to stay as far away from those as possible. um but at these shows and a lot of these places, it just seems like a lot of these $100 to $500 cards, they're just disappearing, right? And a lot of the higher value cards, or it's not higher, right? Mid value, right? 1,500, 2K, 2,500, 3K. Um, people are very eager to move these cards. I saw people coming around today with cards that they last sold in June, or July, the beginning of July, in like 4,200, 4,400, and they're like, look, we're willing to take 36 or 37. I hear them talking to the dealer, and the dealers are like, I don't know, maybe I could give you 29. And they're like, the card sold at four, and these negotiations are going back and forth, but you can see people are becoming eager to move these bigger cards, which tells me either they're becoming afraid to hang on to these cards, um or they're just, they don't want to be stuck with, they're stuck with these cards that nobody else is buying. Nobody else is saying, okay, yeah, like I want to give you, 90% on a $4,000 card or a $5,000 card. Somebody wants to, trade a whole bunch of cards and a little bit of cash, and maybe to move into something like that. And I think people are starting to look for more cash on these bigger cards versus the trade. I mean, they're willing to trade, I'm sure, but from what I see, and I'm a little bit of the same way when I'm making these deals, um, that I'm looking for a little bit more cash or some really nice cards. Just being picky about what cards um, that are coming through. Um, and people, I mean, as I am, always looking to trade down. I don't mind trading down. Trade down to cards that are liquid cards that are just more manageable to move, that people are more apt to buy at these shows, to come in. I mean, the market on this stuff is always going, and you just, like, to me, I just feel you have to be aware. You have to listen to what everybody's saying, watch what people are doing, and just become aware of what's going on. And what happens at one show maybe can be completely different in another show, right? You may go to a smaller local show where people are just trying to unload, and you go to a bigger show and people are like, no, I'm at 95 or 98% or 100%, whatever they want to be at. But either way, I saw a lot of half empty cases at that show today, with everybody with makeshift buying signs. Everybody was buying, but and they're starting at 80, 85%. And for someone like me who's showing up at a show and I have cards in my case, but I set up as a dealer. I'm all set. I don't need to move these cards at 80 or 85%. Um, because I can't replace those cards at 80 or 85%. So it's hard for me to move those cards out. Again, if they're stale cards or cards that I'm into really well and it made sense, okay, do it. But for the most part, if I can't get into those cards for that much, why am I going to sell those cards for that much? Um, Gets me rethinking my strategy, not on everything, but a little bit on the cards, individual cards. Like what did what I do I think should I be holding, right? Um, what should I be asking more money? Where my percentage should be higher and where they shouldn't be so high, just to it's going to start to come down to me. I think it's going to start to come down to individual cards and not just generally where we're like, I had Brad on last season, right? He came on a number of times and he's, 0.80, you buy well and everything sells at 80%, right? I just don't think that's the same anymore. I don't think you can generalize a percentage on all the card. I think every card has to be looked at individually now, and the player, and the situation the player's in, and how well they're doing, or what's the outlook type of thing. So I think I think the I think we need to look at these cards. For me, it's going to be looking at these cards a little bit more individual than just a blanket percentage of what, I'm going to be buying and selling at. We have a group of guys that we're always talking. We all do the same thing in the hobby. And everybody's saying the same thing. They feel like the buying part of it is really starting to dry up, and they're finding it hard to backfill their inventory. So what point does this become a seller's market, or does it ever? Like, can this just continue on because there's just too many cards out there, and they're just overproducing these cards, and the cards are being graded and they're just keep flooding into the market, that it never becomes a seller's market. It's always a buyer's market. Um, something to think about. Something to think about, right? I mean, if we were talking about the housing market or anything else, at some point you would say it would become you know, it would become a seller's market or a buyer's market. But it's almost as if it's always the buyer's market. It never becomes a seller's market, right? I don't know. Um, and people looking at my cars today, I could tell you they didn't even care. They did not care anything about the card. Like, they had no idea some of the cards are even numbered. Like, I don't even know if they're looking at the player on the card. They're scanning it, they're looking at the price, right? And they're saying, "Oh, you know, the last one sold here," and they immediately offer me 80% on the card. Nobody cared what the card was. Like, I'm trying to have conversation about it. I mean, I'll show you the cards I got today, but I bought a Kyler Murray card from a guy today, right? And like, I'm having a conversation, trying to have a conversation with him. Like, I'm excited to get this card. I think this guy could. And the guy looked at me like, you know, And do you have the money? It's like I'm not here to have conversation. I'm just trying to dump this card. You want to buy it, buy it. Like that type of thing. And it's crazy. It's like because most of the people out there, I don't even think they care. I don't even think they care what the card. I think they're just looking at the percentage because I just think they have someone that they're going to move this card right to as fast as they can. It all comes down to the money, and the percentages for them. I've always talked about if you can buy well, you can sell well, but it's getting harder to buy well, right? So the only way to me to really create those juicy margins, and going back to probably last season, the season before, and the season before that, there's been an episode on there about finding the card, getting the card, and grading it yourself, and being the first one to sell it. Because that's where the juiciest of the margins are going to be on those cards. And the quick flips. I was just talking to somebody today, like, you know what? I said I just can't see buying a card to sell a card to make 10 or 15 or $20. Like I know people do that, and I know that's a business, and I understand that. I just don't see that for me. I don't think that's the type of thing that I want to be doing. Does it happen? Of course it happens. Right? Of course it happens. And sometimes I buy a card and I lose money on it. Right? I mean, it's not unheard of. That happens too. Um, we can't forecast everything on there, but if I'm going to take a chance, I'm not going to buy a card to say, man, I hope I can make the $10 or the $15 on this card. It's like, to me, it's like, let's work on a card, maybe a little bigger card, or a card where I can find with a better margin that just makes more sense for me to buy. Because when I buy that card, I may not sell it today. I may not sell it tomorrow. It could sit in my case for a week, a month, 3 months. Who knows how long it's going to sit in my case for? I mean, it could be sold to the next guy who walks up to my table. But I don't think risking the 5, 10, 15, $20, each time on a card, because I would have to sell a lot of those cards in order for this whole thing to make sense. And I just don't think that's something I want to do. I know people do it, but that's not something I want to do it. And the grading is not guaranteed, right? The grading is not guaranteed. You got to get tens. You got to get some tens. And I've had subs that I've put out that I've come back, in 25 cards, and I've gotten 2 10s or 3 10s. I'm like, oh great. I'll be lucky to get all my grading fee back on these things right now. So you can't just be sending any card in. You have to know that the card you're sending in, that even if it comes back a 9, you're still going to do okay with it, right? You still could make a little bit of profit, but not like those 10s, not like when they're those 10s, and those 10s, you should get enough of those 10s that are going to cover your grading and everything else. And if you're not designing it that way, if you're really putting all your eggs in the baskets of a couple cards, then you may be in trouble unless you really know that these are going to be, these are going to come back 10s. A lot of people today talking about quarterbacks who are undervalued and how the prices of their cards are way down, this close to the kickoff, the NFL season kickoff. I mean, I have to agree with them. This year is the first year I haven't seen any big run-ups on any players. People keep saying, well, Stroud had a big run-up, but that started last December or January. I mean, I'm talking about June, July. Like, I expected, like Anthony Richardson, like somebody like to really, start jumping, but there was nothing. I mean, everybody really, I think the market is really just sitting back, and the only other thing I put that on is the pop counts, right? That if the pop counts just keep rising, that the market is just being flooded and the prices are just staying down. And that's certainly a possibility too on that as well. It's going to be interesting to see where these prices go after the season begins, and especially on the cards with the buying and the selling, and what happens at these shows, what we do as dealers, and what people do is buying you know buying the cards to either resell or to move to somebody else. I want to I want to sell my cards at a premium like everybody else does, but I don't want to be left holding on to them if the prices go down either, right? So when it comes to, what football I have left, I've talked about that I should have gotten rid of all my football by now, right? Because the season starts next week. But I haven't. I haven't sold it all, but I'm confident what I have, I'm going to do well with, right? It seems like this time of year, I was overconfident on different players in the last few years, and I ended up kicking myself when the prices came down. So I think I've put myself in a very good situation this year with the veteran players that I still have, that I've still held on to, and the particular cards that I've held on to too, that are cards that people are looking for. So only time will tell, but I think I've done well with that. I talked about the shows I have coming up. I have 3 shows coming up in September. I had the Causeway show, September 7th. I have the Northeast Sports Card Expo at Chelsea Piers in Stamford, September 14th and 15th. And I have a Mohegan Sun show on September 28th. So these are 3 pretty big shows that I think are really going to tell the tale of the tape with the card market kind of moving forward this fall, where these football prices are going to go, if they're going to have a run up if somebody's playing well, or they're going to just keep on flowing the way they have for the last 3 to 5 months. I mean, what do you think? What are you hearing out there? Every show, whether I'm a dealer or I'm walking the show, I'm running into people. People are saying, I'm having so much trouble buying. And the first thing they say, are you selling? Let me go through your case. Let me see what you got. And I say right away, if you're at 80 or 85%, don't look at my case, and they understand. And I just don't want to waste anybody's time. I ran into a guy today, and this is about the 3rd time this has happened now at a show, where I've run into people who used to set up at shows and they're not setting up anymore. And I'm like, what's going on? But you're still doing the hobby, right? And they're like, oh yeah, 100%. They're like, I got a guy now. I have a guy, and I just sell all my cards to him. I know the percentage. I know the exact percentage he's going to pay on all the cards. I can come out, make deals at the show. I grade cards. I get some singles and I grade them, and I move them all. I have somebody I moved all the stuff to. I don't need to come to the show and do all the stuff you're doing, meaning me, putting all that work in. A lot less work, but guaranteed money on the other end. So, and it's not the first time I've heard that. Like I said, I've heard that a number of times, that people have guys now that they're just moving, kind of middlemen, I think, that are just moving these cards, keep moving them on, keep them moving. But I do feel like, every show I go to, I'm able to make a deal. I feel if I put enough, effort into it, I try hard enough, I get deals done. Very rarely do I come home from a show empty-handed. I always come back with something, and I'll go over today's pickups today. I picked up 2020 Donruss Optic Tua Silver Circles PSA 10. Holding that up if you're on YouTube, and that is numbered to 125. I told you I picked up a Kyler Murray card, 2019 Panini Donruss Optic Kyler Murray Hollow PSA 10. And what I was trying to say on him is, I think his market is so low, it could only go up. And I also picked up this 2023 Prism Bryce Young Prison Break Blue Ice to 99, also PSA 10. And I just love the color match on this card. Absolutely love the color match on this card. Probably one of my most exciting pickup just because I like looking at this card. And I also picked up Paige Becker's first Bowman refractor auto number to 250. And there's a raw card. 3 football, right? And one basketball, and all these women's college. I think they're going to putting the work in now. I think they're going to pay off come the new year, January, February, March, with the NCAA tournament, and then the draft, the WNBA draft immediately after that. I think those are going to work out well. I do have to say, we spent 5 hours at the show, and we all worked on a lot of deals, and a lot of deals that never got done. People asking 125% for kabooms or downtowns. And you know, the problem is, and when you start hearing this over and over, you're starting to realize that people overpaid for these cars to begin with, and that's why they've got to be so high over comps to get out of them. Rookie mistake, I think, but you know, everybody likes those flashy kabooms and downtowns. There was a dealer there that had a Joe Burrow rookie auto Mosaic. It was a BGS 9.5. And I said, "What are you asking on that card?" And he said, $2K. And I said, "I had that identical card in my box in a PSA 9. He says, Let me see it. I'll buy it from you." I said, "Okay." So I pulled it out. Now he is asking $2K for his card, 9.5, BGS 9.5. Mine is a PSA 9. Explaining to me why his 2K on his BGS 9.5 is worth every penny. And when he looked at my card, PSA 9, what do you think his first offer was? You guessed it, $650. Because there was one sale last December or January for $700 and something. But November, before he got hurt, the card sold at $1,500. So I put the card away. I said, "Thanks for the offer." I moved on, and I was circling back another lap. He called me back over. He said, "All right." I told him 1,000 for 1K for the card, right? And he called me back over, and I said, "I think you're overpriced, and I think I'm fairly priced." He says, Okay. He said, "I can get to 750 on the card." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, thank you. Bye." I'm all set. But right, you got to put up with that stuff. That's what happens at these things. But it's just an example of somebody that's asking way too much on a card, and had a great explanation, a super explanation of why he felt it was 2,000. But then when he saw my card, immediately it was the below the last lowest comp. That's what you get out there. That's all I got for you today. You can tell I'm losing my voice. Losing my voice at the end of this thing. I've done a lot of talking today. I will be back Thursday with a brand new episode. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.